Hi, I'm Allison Lamb, and this is Weaving Green Justice at COP30, a series of reflections from the heart of the Amazon in Belém. Each clip captures a moment of meaning, weaving together analyses of delegate negotiations, stories of social justice, and interpretations of climate texts through the lens of green ideology. Here's today's thread. This is the first time in 3 years that COP has not been hosted by an oil-rich country, which was part of my insistence on being here. After Sharm el-Sheikh, Dubai, and Baku, it made perfect sense to me that the delegates should hold negotiations in a country and among people who truly understand the devastation of climate change, the need for participatory democracy, and the intersection of social justice and the harms of colonialism.
This is the Sé Cathedral, or the Catedral de Sé, the Cathedral of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Sao Paulo. It is the largest Catholic church in the city of Sao Paulo. This is one of the most iconic symbols of the city, reminding us of Brazil's colonial and religious history. The square in which the cathedral is located is often used for protests, public gatherings, and action campaigns. Beneath the cathedral is the crypt, which was not open to me when I was there. Most interestingly to me, the crypt holds the remains of Chief Chibirisha, an indigenous leader who allied with the Jesuits and later converted and baptized, making him an extremely complex figure in Sao Paulo and indigenous history, particularly when he killed his brother and nephew in defense of a siege against Sao Paulo and the alliance between the Portuguese and the Tupis, the chief's peoples.
I call this series Weaving Green Justice because it evokes relational construction and co-creation, reminding us that there is no ecological justice without social justice. Every thread comes together to form a tapestry within climate negotiations, each thread doing its part. The practice of weaving is delicate. Pull one thread and it could potentially all fall apart. But when it comes together beautifully, the end result is a masterpiece.
I was also at the Patio do Colegio, which was originally erected for the purpose of indoctrinating indigenous peoples. Given my stance on indigenous rights and my ongoing fight for truth and reconciliation, this site was particularly poignant for me. The narrative here was that the Society of Jesus and the indigenous community were true partners, with each group learning much from the other. Eventually, the Jesuits were expelled from Sao Paulo due to their support for freedom of indigenous people and their condemnation of slavery. In a papal bull issued on April 22, 1639, the Pope strictly prohibited the enslavement or trade of indigenous peoples in Brazil, Paraguay, and the entire West Indies. This caused outrage among settlers and led to attacks on Jesuit missionaries. Because the Vatican was so far away and profit was the highest priority for colonial powers and slave traders, the Society of Jesus was stoned, their properties plundered, and they eventually barricaded themselves inside the college. The Jesuits were eventually expelled from the college in 1640 for the next 13 years.
The argument is often made that if COP negotiations are so ineffective and only climate theater, are we not doing more harm than good from the emissions caused by flying tens of thousands of people every year to the host country with zero result? The counter-argument, the one I make, is that it's not true that there is zero result. While we may not see progress being made at the table, and I'll be the first to admit that I frequently witness regression rather than progression, the magic happens away from the table. People around the world meet, collaborate, share ideas, learn from each other, and develop action campaigns together. I now have friends all around the world from Kenya, Ukraine, Indonesia, Colombia, Hong Kong, India, whom I would never have met without COP. And we now share ecological goals, gender campaigns, and climate agendas. We all share one planet, and we must work together in order to protect it.
Further in my colonial tour, I visited Liberdade, once a site where slaves and convicts were executed, now known as Japantown. Decorated throughout with red lantern streetlights, the barrio reminds us of the Japanese who settled here due to being poorly paid and the availability of affordable housing. Although it remains today a bustling quarter and a tribute to current Japanese cuisine and pop culture, during World War II, the Japanese community was persecuted and expelled from Liberdade.
This is the kind of colonial history and understanding that has been missing from the last 3 coasts of COP. I'm ashamed to say that if COP were not hosted here, I would never have learned this. And even if I did read about it in books, to actually walk the steps, sit inside the walls, and see the relics, this brings life to the history that makes up Brazil. This is what makes COP so important. This is why I'm here.